Welcome to the TPS Podcast. This is our inaugural deep dive episode. TPS stands for trillions per second. It's named after the book which we'll be discussing today. Now let's get right to it.
It is great to be here. I have to say, I have spent the last 48 hours completely immersed in this material, and I think my brain is still vibrating.
I know the feeling. I really do. Usually, when you send over a packet for a deep dive on meditation or mindfulness, I kind of brace myself for a certain vibe.
Right.
The soft lighting, maybe picture of stacked rocks on a beach, someone telling me to breathe in the good, breathe out the bad.
The whole McMindfulness package. Relaxation, stress reduction, how to become a slightly calmer, more productive worker bee.
Exactly. I was ready to light some incense, but this is not that. We're looking at a project called Trillions Per Second, and the subtitle is, and I have to quote this, a hardcore manual for hacking the simulation.
It sets a very different tone right out of the gate, doesn't it?
It really does. And I'll be honest, my skepticism radar started pinging immediately. I see hacking the simulation and my mind just instantly goes to Reddit threads and, tinfoil hats and people who are convinced Elon Musk is going to unplug us from the Matrix any day now.
A very healthy reaction.
So is that what we're dealing with here? Are we going down a big sci-fi rabbit hole?
And that's the thing. If this were just another one of those simulation theory books, I promise you, I wouldn't have brought it to the table. This is different.
Okay, how so?
It's not the sci-fi computer in a basement simulation where we're all just, lines of code running on some alien server farm.
So no Keanu Reeves in a long leather trench coat.
Unfortunately, no Keanu. This is much, much closer to home. The author, who goes by the pseudonym C4 Chaos, is arguing for a biological simulation.
So a biological simulation.
Yes. The simulation isn't some digital prison built by machines. It's a mental projection built by your own brain. It's basically a hardware issue.
A hardware issue. Okay, you have to unpack that for me. Because my brain and this desk I'm touching, they feel pretty real.
Okay, think about the screen you're looking at right now, or even just the lights in this room. To your eyes, the light looks constant.
Yeah.
Right? It's just this steady, solid beam of illumination.
Sure. It's on.
But if you were a high-speed camera, a really high-speed one, shooting at 1,000 frames per second, what would you see?
I'd see the flicker. I'd see the electricity cycling, 60 hertz or whatever the frequency is.
Exactly. You'd see that the steady light is actually just a series of incredibly rapid-fire flashes. On, off, on, off, on, off. But your eyes, your biological hardware, they have what you could call a slow sampling rate. They just blend all those flashes into one solid, continuous thing.
Okay, that makes sense. That's basic perception physics. I'm with you so far.
Now, here's the big leap. The thesis of trillions per second is that everything, this desk, your hand, the sound of my voice, your very sense of self, is behaving exactly like that light bulb.
Everything.
Everything. Reality is flashing in and out of existence at a rate so incomprehensibly fast, we're talking trillions of times per second, that our poor primate brains just cannot keep up.
So the only reason the world feels solid is because I'm literally too slow to see the flicker.
Precisely. The simulation is a user interface problem. That's the best way to think about it. We're all walking around with a VR headset that is trying to render this unbelievably high-definition universe, but the headset itself is running on a processor from, the Stone Age. We are lagging.
Lagging. That's the term I saw all over the notes.
It is, and the hack that's promised in the title, it isn't about escaping to Zion or, finding a cheat code for the lottery.
Right.
It's about overclocking your own attention. It's about trying to upgrade your internal frame rate so you can actually start to see the raw data before your brain smooths it all over.
I have to admit, overclocking your attention is a much, much cooler phrase than mindfulness. It definitely speaks to the geek in me.
And that is exactly who this book is for. The author is very, very clear about the target audience. This is for the hardcore practitioners, the geeks, the tech-savvy, the people who are just allergic to New Age fluff.
The people who kind of roll their eyes when they hear about spiritual bypassing.
Exactly. If you want a book about love and light, you should go elsewhere. This book is for the people who want to open up the terminal and look at the command lines of their own consciousness.
Speaking of command lines, the whole creation story of this book is pretty cyberpunk in itself, isn't it? It's not just one person toiling away at a typewriter.
Not at all. It's a cyborg creation. C4 Chaos is very open about this. He calls himself the conductor of an AI symphony. He's using a whole suite of tools, Grok, Gemini, Notebook LM, to synthesize decades and decades of these hardcore teachings.
Which I think we have to touch on later, because that opens up some really fascinating questions about whether a computer can, understand enlightenment.
For sure.
But I want to stick with this core thesis first. Trillions per second. It's a catchy title, absolutely. But is that number real? Or is it just, a bit of hyperbole to make the book sound intense?
In the context of the source material he's drawing from, it is meant to be taken quite literally. And this brings us to the first major technical concept of our deep dive, kalepes.
Kalepes, okay. It sounds like a Greek appetizer, but I'm guessing it's a bit smaller than an olive.
Much, much smaller. So this concept comes from the Abhidhamma, which is, well, it's essentially the higher psychology or the physics map of early Theravada Buddhism. It was a huge focus for a Burmese teacher named Uba Khin.
And what exactly is a kalapa? Is it like an atom or a quark?
That's the natural comparison, but no. And this is the crucial part to wrap your head around. A kalapa is not a particle. It's not a tiny little billiard ball like we imagine atoms to be.
So it's not solid.
Not at all. It's an event. The texts call it a momentary sensory bundle. Think of it as a collocation of qualities, solidity, or what feels like solidity, heat, vibration, oscillation, that arises and then instantly dissolves.
Instantly.
Yuba Khin taught that these units die out immediately after coming into being.
So they're born and they die in the exact same instant.
Yes. There's just flashes of energy. And the ancient texts are weirdly specific about the speed. They say that 1 trillion such moments elapse during the wink of a man's eye.
1 trillion moments in a single wink. That is, honestly, that's terrifyingly fast. It makes me feel tired just thinking about it.
It's completely beyond human comprehension.
Right.
And that is the central problem that the book is trying to address. If reality is this flux that is flashing 1 trillion times in a wink, why on earth does this table feel so hard? Why does my hand feel like a continuous, solid object?
Because I'm not seeing the trillions of flashes. I'm just seeing the blur.
Exactly, the blur. The book uses this specific Pali term, Ghana.
Ghana, you said earlier, spelled like the country.
Yes, but the meaning is totally different. In Pali, Ghana means compactness, or the illusion of solidity. Because our minds have that really slow sampling rate, we're processing visual information at, maybe 30 to 60 frames per second. We just blend all of those rapid flashes into a solid continuity.
It's like when you watch a propeller on a plane start to spin. When it gets going fast enough, it stops looking like individual blades and starts looking like a solid disc. You could almost convince yourself you could walk out on it.
And if you tried to step on it,
you'd be in a lot of trouble.
it's a perfect analogy. The solid world that we think we live in is just motion blur. It's an artifact of our hardware's inability to process the high-speed data.
Yeah.
The author repeatedly compares it to a VR headset with terrible lag.
Oh, I have definitely experienced that. You know when the frame rate drops in a video game, or maybe your internet connection is just bad? You turn your head and the whole world smears. The image doesn't update fast enough, so you get this trail of ghost images behind everything.
Exactly. That smear. That's what this book is calling reality.
That's really disturbing when you put it like that.
It is. The book argues that every single person you know, everyone you meet, is lagging. We're all just walking around inside a low-resolution buffer, reacting to things that have already vanished. We aren't living in the now. We are living in a reconstructed memory of the now, served up to us by a slow processor.
This completely reframes the whole idea of being present, doesn't it? It stops being this sort of gentle attitude and becomes a technical challenge.
It's an engineering problem. And to really illustrate just how bad this lag is, the book draws on this fantastic analogy from one of the core source teachers, Daniel Ingram. It's called the kazoo player analogy.
I saw this in the notes, and I need you to walk me through this, because the image of a kazoo is inherently funny, but I feel like the implication here is actually kind of tragic.
It's a tragic comedy, for sure. So I want you to imagine a magnificent symphony orchestra, a massive one, hundreds of instruments. And they are playing this incredibly complex, fast, intricate piece of music. Let's say it's some high-speed jazz fusion piece with all the complexity of a classical symphony.
Okay. High complexity, fast tempo, a lot of data coming at you.
That orchestra is reality. That's the trillions per second flux. That is the raw data hitting your senses every single moment.
Got it. The symphony is reality.
Now, in the front row, there's a guy sitting there with a cheap plastic kazoo. He's nervous, he's sweating, he has no sheet music, and he's trying to play along with the symphony.
Oh no, that's just pathetic.
It's completely pathetic. But a kazoo player, that is your conscious mind. He is always about half a second behind the orchestra, always. And because it's a kazoo, he can only play one crude single note at a time. The orchestra plays this complex, shimmering chord with 100 instruments, and he just goes toot. The orchestra does a rapid 32-note run, and he just goes honk.
So our entire rich experience of life, everything we think we're seeing and feeling and hearing, is just the toot and honk version of a symphony.
Yes. The kazoo player simplifies, delays, and distorts the reality because that is the absolute limit of his instrument.
Yeah.
He physically cannot play the symphony. It's impossible.
You know, that actually explains a specific type of anxiety I sometimes feel. You know, when you're in a really chaotic situation, like a crowded airport, or you're in a meeting where 5 people are talking at once, and you just feel buffered, like your brain just can't quite catch the rhythm of what's happening.
Yes, that is the kazoo player panicking. He can't keep up with all the notes coming at him. The data stream is just too rich, too fast. So what does the brain do? It ignores most of the detail. It simplifies. It creates this very low-resolution proxy of the world just so you can navigate without crashing the whole system.
So the hack that this book proposes is what? Are we trying to give the kazoo player a violin?
In a way, it's about teaching that kazoo player to upgrade his instrument, or at the very least, to finally realize how much of the music he's missing. It's about training him to just stop honking for a second so he can actually hear the real symphony in the gaps between his own crude notes.
I love that. It's incredibly humbling, but it also explains so much about why we feel disconnected or why things sometimes just feel off. We are literally out of sync with reality.
Exactly. And this brings us really nicely to the source code section of our discussion. Because C4 Chaos isn't just making this all up in a vacuum. He is very explicitly synthesizing a specific lineage of teachers. He calls it the hardcore lineage.
Hardcore Dharma. Sounds like a punk rock band.
In the Buddhist world, it kind of is. This isn't the soft, gentle, let's all be nice to each other and get along kind of Buddhism. This is the let's disassemble the engine of the car while we are driving it at 100 miles per hour school of Buddhism.
Okay, let's meet the band members. Who are the main influences here? We already mentioned Uba Keen.
Uba Keen is the grandfather figure of this whole movement. He was a Burmese layman. In fact, he was a high-ranking government official, the accountant general of Burma, a real numbers guy.
That makes a lot of sense given the focus on trillions.
It does. And he taught that the body is essentially an atomic process. He put a huge emphasis on anicca impermanence. But not just as a philosophy, not just something to think about. He wanted his students to physically feel the combustion and radiation of the atomic structure of their own bodies.
Combustion, that sounds incredibly intense. Usually meditation is framed as cooling down the system.
Not in this lineage.
Yeah.
Abakian talked about feeling the friction of the kalapas as they arise and pass away. He said when you get your concentration deep enough, you don't feel leg or arm anymore. You feel a mass of vibrating energy that is constantly burning up and passing away. He called it dukkha, or suffering, but in a very physical atomic sense, the suffering of constant change.
Okay, so he provides the atomic vibrational base. Who else is in this lineage?
Next, you have Mahasi Sayadaw, another hugely influential Burmese monk. He brought the key technique to the table, noting.
Noting, that's the labeling practice, right? Like mentally saying rising, falling when you're watching your breath.
Yes. But in this hardcore context, it's all about speed and precision. It's about using that label to deconstruct your experience into discrete individual frames. Sound, touch, thought, seeing, sound. It's the tool you use to break up that illusion of solidity, that ghana. It's like turning a strobe light on in your mind.
And then we get to a name I recognized immediately from the notes. The self-proclaimed bad boy of Dharma, Daniel Ingram. I've read his book, Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, or MCTB as its fans call it. It is distinct.
Distinct is a very polite way to put it. Ingram is the one who really pushes that hardcore label. He's an emergency medicine physician, so he brings this very triage-focused, no-nonsense, adrenaline-fueled approach to spirituality.
He's the one famous for criticizing the mushroom factor.
Yes, the mushroom factor.
Yeah.
He asked, how do you grow mushrooms?
You keep them in the dark and you feed them. Well, manure.
Exactly. Ingram argues that for centuries, and especially in the West, meditation teachers have been keeping their students in the dark. They don't tell them the map and the territory. They don't tell them what will actually happen, the weird visuals, the terrifying stages, the high-speed vibrations. They just pat you on the head and say, just relax and be present. Ingram is all about radical transparency and technical precision.
And he's the one who coined the phrase, shootin' aliens, for meditation practice.
He did.
Which, I have to say, sounds like the absolute opposite of meditation. Shootin' aliens sounds like creating stress, not finding peace.
And to him, that's the point. Good insight practice isn't peaceful, at least not at first. It feels like a high-speed video game. You are the shooter, and every sensation that arises is an alien. They pop up, bam, you note it, bam, bam, bam. You need speed, you need precision, and you need a playful, game-like attitude. If you're just zoning out and feeling blissful, you aren't hacking the simulation, you're just taking a nap.
That ties right back into the overclocking idea. It's active, it's high energy, it's a workout.
It's a serious workout. And finally, the fourth pillar of this synthesis is Shinzen Young.
Ah, the science of enlightenment guy. The one who tries to make it all systematic.
Right. Shinzen is the bridge to Western science and mathematics. He loves categorizing sensory experience with incredible precision. And he is absolutely crucial for this trillions per second concept because he's the one who talks about the terahertz gap.
Okay, I saw this in the notes, and this is where I need you to put on your physics hat for a moment. What exactly is the terahertz gap?
Okay, so let's think about the electromagnetic spectrum. We know that sound is low frequency. We measure it in hertz. We know that the processors in our computers work in gigahertz. That's billions of cycles per second.
Right. My laptop is running at a few gigahertz right now.
But there's this huge range of frequencies between, say, microwaves and infrared light that's been historically very difficult for technology to work with. That's the terahertz gap. And it turns out that nature biological molecules, DNA, the cold energy in deep space, vibrates at terahertz frequencies. That's trillions of cycles per second.
Trillions. There's that number again.
There's the number. So
Okay.
the book posits a really fascinating bridge here. It suggests that what the physicists are measuring as terahertz waves, from the outside, that's the objective view, what Ken Wilber would call the upper right quadrant, is exactly what a deep meditator experiences as kalapis from the inside, the subjective or upper left quadrant.
Whoa. Hang on a second. So you're saying that when Ubakin talks about feeling the atomic vibration of his body, or the combustion as he called it, he might have been literally, physically feeling the terahertz vibration of his own biology.
That is the hypothesis. It's an attempt to connect the internal first-person feeling with the external third-person measurement. Science and Buddhism are saying the same fundamental thing. Solidity is an illusion. Matter is just a high-speed flicker of events. The book is just giving you the manual to feel those terahertz waves for yourself from the inside out.
That is heavy. But it's also,
Inside.
it was also kind of cool. It makes meditation feel less like prayer and more like lab work. Or hacking. You're trying to verify the physics of the universe using your own nervous system as the measurement device.
It is hacking. You are trying to get root access to the operating system of your own existence.
Okay, so let's say I'm intrigued. I want to hack the simulation. I want to see the matrix code for myself. How do I actually do it? This brings us to section 3 of our deep dive, the hack. What is the methodology here? Because I looked at the techniques, and frankly, they look exhausting.
They are exhausting. This is not a passive practice. This is a workout for your attention. The core method, the one thing that ties it all together, is increasing the resolving power of your attention. You have to upgrade your frame rate. The manual outlines 3 main techniques to do that.
Let's go through them. Technique 1. High-speed noting. This is the Daniel Ingram shooting aliens stuff.
Right. The instruction is to note sensory events at a speed of 1 to 10 times per second.
Stop right there. 1 to 10 times per second.
Yes.
I can't even speak that fast. If I tried to say itching, thinking, hearing, seeing 10 times in 1 second, my tongue would tie itself in a knot.
You don't have to speak it out loud. In fact, you really shouldn't. It's too slow. It can be just a tiny mental tap. Tick, 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 tick. Imagine tapping your finger on a table as fast as you possibly can. That's the kind of speed you want your awareness to be moving at.
And what am I supposed to be noting at that speed?
Anything. Everything. The slightest sound, a tiny tingle in your knee, a fleeting thought, a flash of color behind your eyelids. Whatever pops up in consciousness, you shoot it with a note.
But doesn't that just create more mental chaos? My mind is already chaotic enough.
It creates a very specific kind of chaos that is designed to break the illusion. The goal is to overwhelm the kazoo player. You know that part of your brain that is constantly trying to make stories and narratives? Oh, my knee hurts. I wonder if I injured it at the gym last week. Maybe I should buy new running shoes.
Oh, yeah. That guy never, ever shuts up.
High-speed noting is designed to shut him up by completely overloading his buffer. If you force your attention to move at 10 hertz, the storyteller just can't keep up. He creates a bottleneck in the system. And eventually, if you keep the pressure on, he crashes. The entire narrative-making function collapses, and you're just left with the raw, unfiltered data stream.
That sounds like a DDoS attack on your own ego.
That is a perfect analogy. You are literally DDoSing your own internal narrator until it shuts down and reboots in safe mode. And safe mode is just pure, non-judgmental observation.
Wow. Okay, technique 2. Body sweeping and vibrations. This sounds a little more familiar, maybe like the Goenka style of meditation.
Yes, it's very much derived from the Yubakin and SN Goenka lineage. You systematically scan your attention through your entire body, piece by piece. But, and this is the key, you aren't looking for relaxation. You are hunting for subtle sensations.
And by subtle sensations, you mean the kalapas.
You're hunting for the kalapas, exactly. At first, your leg just feels like a solid block of meat. That's gana, the compactness. As you sharpen your focus and sweep over it again and again, you might feel an itch, then a tingle. Then, if you keep dialing up the resolution, that solid leg dissolves into a shimmering, vibrating mass of energy.
Like TV static.
Like 3D TV static. Or a more pleasant analogy the book uses is champagne bubbles.
Champagne bubbles. I like that image a lot more than TV static.
Shinzen Young often describes this flow state as bubbly or scintillating. The goal is to feel the friction, radiation, and combustion of your own atomic structure. You are empirically validating the simulation theory with your own body as the laboratory.
It sounds pleasant when you say champagne, but Yubakin used the word combustion. Is this a painful experience?
It can be. I mean, imagine feeling your entire body dissolving into raw electricity. For some people, it's ecstatic. For others, it can feel like you're being electrocuted. It really depends on how much you resist the process.
Which leads us directly to technique 3, the power of Gon. This one is pure Shinzen Young, and honestly, it's the most abstract and mind-bending one for me.
This is my personal favorite because it's just so counterintuitive. In normal life, and even in most meditation, we focus on things arising. Oh, look, a bird. Oh, here comes a thought. Shinzen's instruction is, ignore the arrival. Focus entirely on the departure. The vanishing. Every single sensory experience, a sound, a feeling, a thought, it has a birth and it has a death. We are obsessed with the birth. We almost always ignore the death. We're already looking for the next thing to arise. But if you can train your mind to catch the exact microsecond that a sensation disappears, something really profound happens.
It will happen.
You fall into the gap between moments. Shinzen calls it the wormhole. Or, using a very esoteric term he borrowed from the Christian mystic St. Teresa of Avila, he calls it transverberation.
Transverberation. That is a $10 word if I've ever heard one. What does it mean?
It basically means to be pierced through by an arrow. He calls it God's arrow. His model is that when you focus intently on the Gon, you are detecting the unborn source from which all things arise. You are seeing the split second where the simulation refreshes itself.
So the Gon is the glitch in the matrix.
The Gon is the doorway out of the simulation. Or, maybe more accurately, it's the doorway to the source code of the simulation. He describes it as a channel opening up through time-space. When you see something vanish, really truly vanish, you are seeing the void from which the very next moment of reality is about to spring.
It's like seeing the black space between the individual frames of a movie film.
That's a perfect way to put it. And if you can learn to widen that black space, the movie stops and you are free from its narrative.
This also connects to that other idea from the notes about expansion and contraction, right?
Yes. The manual encourages you to notice that experience isn't static. It's not just sitting there. Everything is a bidirectional flux. Every sensation is expanding and contracting simultaneously. The entire universe is breathing at a terahertz frequency. Your job is to train your attention to be sensitive enough to sync your own breath with that cosmic breath.
This all sounds incredible, truly. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Or maybe it's the tiger in the room. The danger, the risk. Because if I start dissolving my leg into champagne bubbles and seeing wormholes appear in the air, am I going to be able to drive my car, or hold down a job, or talk to my spouse without looking like I'm having a psychotic break?
That is the million-dollar question. And this brings us to section 4, the roadmap. Because this book, to its credit, does not hide the fact that this path has serious pitfalls. In fact, it leans heavily on Daniel Ingram's maps of insight, which are notorious for their explicit warnings.
We absolutely have to talk about the dark night. I've heard this term whispered in meditation circles like a ghost story. People seem terrified of it.
It is real, and the manual is very explicit about it. The path of insight, of hacking the simulation, it follows a very predictable curve. First, you have the AMP.
AMP, like the old grocery store.
No, the arising and passing away. This is the event horizon of the hack. It's the honeymoon phase. It's amazing. You start seeing the vibrations for the first time. You have incredible energy. You might have visions, see brilliant lights. You feel like a god. You think, I've done it. I'm enlightened. I'm hacking the
I
mainframe.
feel a very large but coming.
It's a massive but.
Hmm.
That high-energy, blissful state, inevitably for everyone, crashes. Once you see with absolute clarity that everything is impermanent, that you have no solid, enduring self, that everything you love is just dying trillions of times a second, that realization can flip from being exciting to being utterly terrifying.
And that's the dark night.
That is the dark night. In the classical maps, it's called the dukkhanas, the knowledges of suffering. You might feel intense fear, deep misery, disgust with life, a sense of dread. You might feel like you are literally falling apart.
Because you are falling apart, you just spent weeks intentionally dissolving your entire reality into pixels.
Exactly. You hacked the code, and now the user interface is glitching out on you. The manual uses a great analogy. It compares it to rehab after major hip surgery. It's painful, it's necessary, it's awkward, and you have to keep moving to heal. You can't just stop in the middle of the surgery and expect to be okay.
So what does the book tell you to do? If you find yourself in the dark night, do you just stop meditating for a while?
No, that's the worst thing you can do. Then you're just stuck in the misery with no map and no way out. The only way out is through. You have to keep noting. You note the fear, you note the misery, fear, disgust, shaking, dread. You treat the bad feelings just like the aliens in the video game. You just keep shooting.
That sounds unbelievably hardcore. Keep shooting the aliens even when the aliens are your own crushing depression.
That is the method. The goal is to get through those stages to reach a stage called Banga dissolution and to get comfortable there. The target isn't to rebuild the solid world you just tore down. The target is to achieve freedom within the flux.
Freedom within the flux. What does that actually look like in practice?
It means you finally stop fighting the frame rate. You stop trying to be a solid thing standing on a solid planet. You realize that you are just a flow of sensations happening. Shinzen describes it beautifully as a pixelated, wavy state.
So you become a wave.
You realize you always were a wave. You just had the mistaken idea that you were a particle. And the immense relief comes from stopping the lifelong, exhausting effort of trying to maintain the illusion of being a solid, separate particle.
That sounds after you get through the terror part. Remarkably peaceful, actually.
It is. It's the peace of learning to surf the waves rather than trying to stand in front of them and hold back the entire ocean.
So let's zoom out a bit. We have this manual, trillions per second. It's synthesizing all these hardcore heavy hitters. It's got the warnings, it's got the techniques, it's got the scientific parallels. How is this actually going to land in the wild? I mean, this isn't the power of now. You're not going to be able to buy this at the airport checkout next to the chewing gum.
No, definitely not. This is a niche product, but I think it's a vital niche. The manual format itself is really interesting. It aims to be short. The outline says 200 to 250 pages. Very signal-dense prose and lots of infographics.
I saw that in the outline, and that really caught my eye. Visualizing the Kalapa flux, before and after diagrams of Ghana, the solid illusion, versus Banga, the flowing reality. It sounds very user-friendly for a manual on how to deconstruct your own reality.
It's designed for the Instagram and TikTok generation of attention spans, but for a subject that requires almost infinite patience. It uses these simulation metaphors, lag, refresh rate, pixels, to hook readers who intuitively understand technology but maybe don't understand ancient Pali scriptures.
And we have to circle back to the AI aspect. The author openly admits, I wouldn't have been able to write this book without AI.
That is just fascinating to me. I'm sure some people in the traditional camps will say it's cheating to use AI to write a spiritual book.
I mean, my first reaction is, yeah, it kind of feels like it. Can a soulless algorithm really help you find your soul?
But the way the author frames it is open source Dharma. He's using the AI to synthesize a toolkit that's already out there. He's not asking the AI to be the guru. He's asking the AI to be the world's most efficient research librarian.
That's a fair distinction. I guess if you're writing a manual for hacking a simulation, using a digital intelligence to help you write, it feels thematically consistent, at least.
It really does. And it begs the question, is this the future of spiritual texts? Less guru on a mountaintop, original proclamations, and more curated, hallucinations-checked synthesis. It's a cyborg dharma for a cyborg age.
So who is this book really for? We said geeks, but let's be more specific.
It's for the pragmatic dharma crowd. These are the people who treat enlightenment not as some mystical gift of grace, but as a technical engineering problem to be solved. They want to see the schematics. They want to know how the machine works so they can debug it and fix it.
It seems to perfectly bridge the gap between the ancient Abhidhamma and modern simulation theory.
Exactly. It validates that deep intuition that so many people in the tech world have, that reality feels rendered. And this book comes along and says, you're right, it is rendered. And here is the manual for how you can access the developer console.
I think that's going to be huge for a certain type of person. Because a lot of people feel alienated by the religious trappings of Buddhism, the robes, the chanting, the specific cultural context. But if you tell them, hey, your brain has a latency issue and here's a script you can run to fix it, they're all in.
Precisely. It strips away all the fluff to reveal the code underneath.
Yeah.
But, as we discussed with The Dark Knight, running that script has consequences. It's not a toy.
Not a toy. That should probably be the disclaimer on the front cover. Warning, may dissolve your ego. Side effects include existential dread, pixelated vision, and a deep distrust of solid objects.
Warning, frame rate may increase drastically. Do not operate heavy machinery while noting at 10 hertz.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into the flux, what is the big takeaway here? For the listener who's sitting in their car right now or at the gym or maybe just washing the dishes, why should they care about Kalapis and frame rates?
I think the biggest takeaway is to challenge your perception of now. We all think we are living in the present moment, but if we take the trillions per second thesis seriously, we are never in the present. We are living in the past. We are living inside a buffered, delayed, smoothed-over reconstruction of a past that has already vanished.
We're the kazoo player.
We are all the kazoo player, honking along to a beautiful melody that already happened half a second ago.
That's a haunting thought.
It is. But the promise of the book is that we can catch up. We can close that gap. We can learn to tune our instrument. And even if we just glimpse that trillions per second reality for a single moment, just one wink of an eye, it changes everything. It proves that the so-called solidity of our problems, our stress, our very selves, is an illusion. It's just a trick of the light generated by a slow processor.
And if it's a trick, then we don't have to take it all so seriously.
Exactly. We can learn to play with the pixels instead of being trapped by them.
I love that. Well, this has been a truly mind-bending inaugural deep dive. I'm definitely going to be thinking about this for a while. And I might even try that tapping exercise. 10 times a second.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Watch out for the aliens.
I will. And to everyone listening, here is a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. If you think you are sitting in a solid room right now, check again. You are just lagging. What happens if you speed up? What happens if you start to catch up to the trillions of frames per second?
The goal isn't to escape the simulation. It's just to upgrade your internal resolution.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the flux. Until next time, watch your frame rate.
See you in the next frame.